Hello and good morning, everybody. This is Pip Coleman coming in to do the Find Your Soul show. And this week we are continuing our conversation about holiday hacks and Christmas and holidays and how we can handle all of that stuff that happens at this time of the year. And we're specifically going to be talking this week about traditions and rituals. So it's a big one. It's an important one to address because sometimes we just go along with the traditions and the rituals because that's how it's always been. And we don't really look at whether or not it's actually serving us or not. So we're going to look at three things today in terms of traditions and rituals. We're going to look at Christmas presents and the way that the Christmas presents are given and the types of Christmas presents that you give. We're going to look at cooking and the food and how that actually happens in these few days, this week of celebrations. And we're going to look at the people and where you go and how you do things in this time. So I'm just going to touch on a few things today to give you some tips, and please feel free to share in the comments below if you have any aha moments or you decide that in this moment you decide, oh my gosh, I'm going to change the way that I do this ritual or this tradition so that it serves me and so that it serves everyone. I'm not talking about being completely self-indulgent and just looking after you only. I'm talking about being balanced in the way that you give and receive at this time of the year. So let's talk about the Christmas presents first, because that's a good place to start. As good as any, isn't it? So Christmas presents are interesting because over the years, as children, I remember that we were given lots and lots of presents from our grandparents and parents, and I remember Christmas being like, a pile of presents under the Christmas tree. And that was the tradition in our family anyway, was to give all those presents on Christmas Day, Christmas morning. So there would be this build up, and then on Christmas morning there would be this giving of the presents, and it would be like this sort of overwhelming, oh my God, there's so many presents, and it was really intense. And there are other people who do their Christmas present giving on Christmas Eve, for example. So I know of people in my extended family that do a big celebration, or like the Christmas present bit happens on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas Day they do other things. So everybody has their things. And one of the interesting things is I was listening to someone telling about how their parents were like really kind of specific about how they wanted to give their presents, and it was like this big deal, and they would make a lot of effort to put into buying the presents, and then they wanted everybody when they opened them to be very engaged in just their present opening. So it was like, here's the present that I've given to you, here's the present I've given to you, and it was like everything had to stop for those people to give their presents, because it was really important to them that they got that immediate feedback from the people of, did they like the present, and they could see the people opening their presents. And it was like a really big deal, and it was, kind of taking over the rest of the present giving time. So this person that I know decided that they were going to keep the tradition because they liked the idea of the parents having like a special moment where they could give their presents to their grandchildren and they could give their presents to their children. And it was like just about that exchange. So that was nice. That bit was nice. But it was taking over the rest of the time. So what they did was they separated the Christmas present giving to the Christmas Eve became grandparent time, and grandparents would give all their presents, and it would be like this very special, here's my present for you, Mary. Here's my present for you, George. Here's my present for you, Louise. Here's my present for you, Alicia. And it was this sort of special occasion. So on Christmas Eve, that was their time to give their very special presents. And then it was contained in that moment, and no one else was going to feel kind of put out by the fact that there was such a big deal happening around those people's presents being given. And then on Christmas Day, they would then do everybody else's presents. So everybody else would exchange, and everyone was fine because there was no spotlight being put on the grandparents and taken away from anyone else. So that is one way that you could tweak the present giving so that it still honours that lovely ritual, that tradition, that thing that those people want to do and that you like as well, and take the pressure off yourself and that sort of, sensation of this is, not quite working for us, rather than canning it all together. Because some people do get to the point where they're like, I've been dealing with this for like 20 years, and they get to the point where they go, I'm just going to can it. I'm just going to completely can it. No more presents. Grandma can't do this anymore. And they just and they lose. There's a loss in that is not going to be helpful to anyone really, because everybody loves to receive a gift and everybody loves to, see someone opening a present. So there's some value to keeping some things and just tweaking them in a way that suits you better. So that's one suggestion in terms of, Christmas present giving. The other idea around Christmas presents is the type of Christmas presents that you give. And as a child, obviously, or if there's children around in your Christmas and holiday time, then giving presents can be, that opening of the present is really amazing, and it's like ripping of all the presents opening, and that's that excitement of opening the present. And as you get older, there's still excitement, but it's a different sort of feeling when there's no little ones around. So that opening of the presents becomes a little bit different. It's still nice, it's still lovely, but perhaps the types of presents that you give change. And obviously, because you're not necessarily going to give, toys and games and things to adults. Unless you're like my family, where we tend to play a lot of games and, we have our, funny challenge and, Christmas sort of stuff that we do where we do competitions and stuff like that. So that's the type of family that we are. So if you feel like you need to maybe change the type of gifts or change perhaps there's been some overgiving, some like overcompensation with some people, where they just keep going higher and higher and higher with their value of their gifts, and it's actually making you feel uncomfortable that it's like, so expensive, and you feel like you have to spend that sort of money as well. You could have a spending limit, and you could say, this is our spending limit and everybody's going to spend $50, and that way everyone's spending the same amount of money, if that is something that you feel needs to be addressed. On the other hand, there is a lot of value in letting people give what they feel they need to give. And sometimes our things that come up at Christmas in terms of, someone spending too much money on us, or we're being expected to pay too much, so much, there's like this idea that we need to give a lot. Sometimes we need to look at our boundaries and what it is that we're actually doing in terms of receiving and allowing ourselves to be given things that we're worthy of, that we deserve. Sometimes we don't feel like we deserve the presents that we're being given. And that is a really interesting inquiry to do, because if you actually are feeling like you don't deserve the gifts that you're being given, there's another level of self-inquiry and self-development that you might want to look into in terms of your worthiness and how you feel about receiving and giving. Because if there's an imbalance in your receiving and your giving, then there will be a lack of abundance in your life, for example. So if you don't have a lot of money, then you might find that you've actually not been very good at receiving. Maybe you do a lot of giving, but you're not very good at receiving, and you need to practice more around appreciation, gratitude, seeing the things that are good in your life that you already have, and doing some practices and rituals around that. So your Christmas ritual, your Christmas prescription, your holiday prescription could be to practice saying thank you. Thank you so much, I receive that. Thank you so much, I'm going to receive that present. Thank you so much, I'm going to receive that bottle of wine, or whatever it is that people are giving to you at that time. Even if it's not your favourite gift and it's not the thing that you would have chosen necessarily for yourself, it's really important to practice receiving at this time, because it's all about the energy, the flow of energy going in and out. And I know when I'm in that space of feeling a bit poverty mindset and not really feeling abundant and perhaps not having a lot of money coming in, I know that it's because I'm giving too much and I'm not receiving enough, and I'm not focusing enough on the receiving of the money or the receiving of anything, just receiving in general. So that's a little bit about Christmas gifts or holiday gifts. If you're not celebrating Christmas, you might be celebrating Hanukkah or one of the other holidays at this time, or maybe not at all. Still relevant. The receiving and the giving is still relevant. So let's move on. Feel free to comment below if you had an aha moment there. Move on to cooking. So this is one of the things that I have discovered over the last year, 2 years, is that the cooking part, it can be really stressful for a lot of people. Some people just assume that, one person in the family is always going to do the cooking. Maybe it's mum, maybe it's granddad, maybe it's, your sister or whatever, or your brother. And every year it's just always been that way. But maybe that person doesn't actually find it really, fun. Maybe it's not fun for them. Maybe it's not fun for you. Maybe you're the one that's always doing the cooking. And so there's a few different ways that you can actually do this. If you find it fun, if the cooking part is your favorite thing, great. Keep doing it. Do the things that make you feel good. Do the things that make you feel energized. And if you love that part of Christmas, then yay, keep doing it. I'm not saying to give away the stuff that you do enjoy. Keep doing that stuff. That's great. If, on the other hand, you're like me and you're not really a cooking kind of a person, there's a few different suggestions that I have for you. One is what I did last year for the first time, and we're doing it again this year, is we got the HelloFresh Christmas box. So I've been getting the HelloFresh, meal deliveries over the last 2 years. It's been great because they deliver them to my house and I get my, 6 or 7 meals for the week, and I cook them up myself, but I don't have to go out and look for the food myself. It's just I pick my menu and then they send it to me in a box, and it's all the ingredients are there. And one of the things that HelloFresh does is they have a Christmas box. So you can pick the Christmas box and pay for it, and then you say how many people it is that you're going to be who are going to be eating, and then they send you enough food for that. And there's usually 3 or 4 courses, and there's lots of cool stuff. So there's like pre-appetizer type yummy things to make, then there's the main meal, and then there's the dessert afterwards as well. So it's a lovely preset, ready to go. Everything's there for you. Don't have to go out and find all of the extra bits and pieces that you would normally have to do at Christmas. It's just all sent to your door. Super easy. So that is something that was really good for me because I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with all of that, finding all the food and getting it ready and having a recipe of what it's going to... No, can't be bothered with all that. but I don't mind actually doing the cooking part. So that was one thing. The second thing that's really helpful is if you're the sort of person who tries to do everything on your own, then maybe you could tweak your cooking tradition, your cooking ritual, to include some other people in that process so that you don't feel quite so burdened with the job. So enlist the help of some of the kids and have special things that they do. So maybe they can whip the cream, or they can help with the chopping of the vegetables. Maybe they can, show them how to stuff the turkey or the chicken or whatever it is that you're making at this time. One of the traditions that my dad really likes is he likes to cut the ham. He had like a tradition ever since he was a little kid. His granddad used to cut the ham. The first cutting of the ham was like a sort of a family tradition, and that was what he loved to do. And so that's something that you might let that person might start their own tradition of, the first cutting of the ham and the cheers, it's Christmas or whatever. Like that might be something that you decide is just that one person's little thing that they do. But it also helps you because they're cutting the ham, and that means you don't have to cut the ham or whatever. So that's another idea, is like, having people help you rather than doing it all yourself. Because I know as a woman, and there's lots of women in this community, in my tribe, there's a lot of females, a lot of women who have that sort of thing where they think that they have to do everything themselves. They feel like they have to serve everyone and they have to do everything themselves. So I'd like to encourage you this year to ask for help, because that's one of my practices that I'm working on. I'm always working on growing myself. And one of the things that I've really had to work on is asking for help, because it doesn't have to be just you. You don't have to do it completely on your own. You can ask for help, and that's okay. And think of it this way. If somebody asked you for help, you'd probably say yes, right? If someone was like, I really need some help with this meal, or I really need some help with this picking up kids from school, or I really need help with that, you would go, yeah, I can help you with that. And that would be almost second nature to you, to help another person. So I ask you this, why don't you give another person the opportunity to feel the feeling that you have when you help somebody else? That feeling of like, I feel really good that I helped that person with that thing. There's a beautiful exchange that happens when someone asks for help and you give it to them. And the same happens when you ask for help and they give it to you. I remember listening to Brené Brown, and she was talking about people who don't accept help are actually not doing themselves or anyone else any favours. And she was talking about how there's judgment involved in help and asking and giving help. It's really interesting. So she was saying that if you have no problem giving help to another person, but you don't receive help for yourself, you're actually judging that person and yourself. There's a judgment in there around, oh my God, that person needs my help. They're so needy. And so I'm like being this amazing person by giving them help. But if I ask for help, then that I wouldn't want someone to think that of me. There's a really interesting judgment that's going on underneath the surface there around, I'm better than that person, I can help them, but I would never ask for help myself. So I ask you to just think a little bit about that, about, hey, maybe we can actually change the way we think about giving and receiving help. There's a difference between giving it and being a bit like, oh, I'm so much better than them, I can help them, and giving for the pure joy of being able to assist somebody else and allowing yourself to be assisted too, so that there's an equal exchange of energy. And it doesn't have to be with that same person. You might give to this person over here and then receive from this person over here. It's an energetic exchange is what I'm talking about. So that's cooking. So we've talked about Christmas presents, we've talked about cooking and receiving help. And the third thing is the people that you have in your space in terms of traditions. Are you the sort of person who, here's an example. If your parents are divorced and there's two families to go to at Christmas and your own. So there's mum's family, dad's family, or mum and dad, new wife and family, and then there's dad's new wife and family, and then there's you and your kids and your family. You might feel like you're being split into 3 or 4 or who knows how many pieces on Christmas and around the holidays. So, and particularly this year, because we have had 2 years of, COVID restrictions and things where we haven't been able to see our loved ones potentially. So what we need to do is think about, who are the people that we actually want to see? Very important to make note of that. Who are the people that we don't want to see? Because that's also important to make note of. And how can we manage the few days around that Christmas and New Year kind of time so that everybody's happy, so that everybody's, taken care of, and also we honour ourselves first. So I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying that they have that exact situation happening where there's mum and dad separated or divorced, and then there's their family, and it's just exhausting because they're going breakfast here, then lunch here, then afternoon tea here, and then dinner at someone else. And by the end of the day, the kids are just exhausted and they're all exhausted and everybody's just tired. So let's look at spreading out our celebrations, spreading them out. Or, for example, having people come to us rather than us going to everybody else. So there's lots of different ways that you could do it. If you're sort of driving all over the place and you're exhausted by the end of the day, maybe you say, hey, this year you can come to me. How about if you come to me? You come in the morning, you come in the afternoon. If people can't be in the same room at the same time, then you kind of have to honour that's how they are. Or maybe you could ask them to put down their battle their battle weapons put down their weapons and just and see if they can actually be in the same room together just for this one time. The other option is if it's really, really toxic and you just honestly cannot handle these people being in your space, whether you're at their space or they're at your space, maybe you do make a decision that you're going to do this year just you and your family, or just you on your own. We talked about that last week in terms of expectations and that whole idea that it's your holiday too, and that you're allowed to choose. If you want to have a Christmas on your own, if you want to go on a holiday to a resort and be by yourself, or just you and your little, family, then that is your right to choose that. And it's really important to honour those feelings. And that may upset other people, and we also need to make sure that we're honouring ourselves, So look, it might not be the case that you can't. Maybe you feel like you can't be completely, alone for Christmas. And we talked about the lady whose sister always tries to make sure that she's got people around her at Christmas when she actually just wants to be completely alone. And so she lies to her sister and tells her that she's, going to a friend's house when she's actually going to somewhere by herself. So, we do what we need to do to honour ourselves. And this is the thing, is it's about taking care of yourself and balancing the other people around you as well. in the best way that you can, and making sure that those traditions and rituals, you know, whether you make up new ones for yourself or you tweak the old ones or you throw them out altogether. Maybe you've decided that you don't want to even do the whole Christmas thing at all. Maybe whether you believe in Christmas or whether it's not part of your religion or whether you do, it doesn't matter, you know. And one of my clients decided that, you know, she's not going to do the big group gathering this year. She's just going to do her and her husband, and that's it. And because they had a gathering last week and did the family thing, and they've said, you know what, this year we're not joining in on the big, you know, celebration. We're just going to have a quiet one on our own. And she feels so much better about doing that. And that's what I mean about honouring yourself. If you feel relieved when you make that decision, then you know you've made the right choice. And, you know, sometimes we have to do things that are right for us and not necessarily what the group might want. So, but it's all about balance. So being mindful of that is important. So those are my 3 tips, holiday hacks about traditions and rituals, how to change and adjust them. Just a few suggestions on how to change and adjust them with regard to presents, with regard to cooking and food, and with regard to the people around you as well. So that was what I wanted to share with you today. Hope that was helpful. Please feel free to comment below and share your experiences. If you need any help with any of this, please feel free to get in touch with me and we could do some coaching. There is still time. There's always time, and we can take care of you. You can take care of you. We can do this together and I can support you. So please get in touch if you would like to talk about that in terms of coaching you through this time. The other thing, little quick announcement, coming up in January and March, I have some amazing retreats. The New Moon Divine Alignment retreat is going to be a 1-day retreat on the 29th of January. Very excited, down here on Phillip Island. If you'd like to get the information about that, you can go to my website, pipcoleman.com/store, and check out the details. The other retreat is a full moon divine alignment weekend retreat, and that's in March on the 18th, 19th and 20th of March, also on Phillip Island. So you can come and have some deep nurturing. We're going to be doing sound healing, we're going to be doing Reiki sessions, we're going to be doing some divine alignment practices from my coaching program to release, to heal, to set your intentions for 2022, to really bring you back into a space of alignment and do some deep nurturing. If you would like to have some time out and you would like to reconnect with some like-minded people, then this is for you. Come and really deeply nurture your soul. And I would love to see you. That would be amazing to meet you in person. So I look forward to talking to you really soon. And next week we're going to be looking at our last show. We'll be talking about boundaries, and we'll be talking about food and body and alcohol stuff that comes up around the Christmas holiday period. So let's be free to be our full selves at this holiday season and honour and look after ourselves in a beautiful, deep, nurturing way. So I look forward to talking to you then. This is Pip Coleman. I will see you next week for the Find Your Soul show. Bye for now.